In 1981, San Antonio, Texas elected its first Latino mayor. In 2009, America elected its first black president. This is what the San Antonio Council looked like in 2014. The council is made up of people from all different walks of life. None of this could have been possible without the man that goes by the name of Willie Velasquez. Latinos were not allowed to vote without a poll tax until the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was passed. Even though Latinos were allowed to vote, they were discouraged due to discrimination. Latinos were kept from using their voting rights, much like the blacks were when the Jim Crow laws were in place. Some towns held voting at places that Latinos were not normally allowed. Therefore, they felt intimidated and were ultimately afraid to go vote or felt like their vote didn't matter.
Before he got involved, there wasn't the awareness. Look, the reason you have flooding in your streets is because you're not voting. You need to start registering to vote so you can have an impact on the people that make policy, on the people that are supposed to fix the streets and all that.
Willie grew up in a poor neighborhood on the west side of San Antonio, Texas. The streets did not have proper drainage, so whenever it rained, it flooded greatly. This was because no one on the council represented them, so their issues in the neighborhood were not resolved. When Willie was in college, he worked with Latino farm workers to help them get better pay and working conditions. When he was volunteering in the huelgas, or strikes, he found out that the reason nothing got better for his community was because all Latinos were afraid to vote, so they had no voice, and he wanted to find a way to help.
And it seemed like out of the blue, Willie had applied for a internship with Henry B. Gonzalez to work in Washington, D.C. This was right out of high school, and he was inspired. We saw all these images in the TV of blacks getting beat up because they wanted to vote, and he just really got motivated. And he had worked on John F. Kennedy's campaign in 1960, called Viva Kennedy clubs, and from that age, he just got a fire in him that he wanted to do something at an early age. So right out of high school, that summer he went and he applied, and he came in, I remember coming in home and saying that I got accepted. To what? To work in Washington, D.C.
In 1967, Willie founded the Mexican American Youth Organization, along with Jose Angel Gutierrez, Juan Patlan, Ignacio Perez, and Mario Cambion.
And from there, when he came back from Washington, he met good friends, Jose Angel Gutierrez, Juan Patlan, Nacho Perez, Mario Cambion. And while he was still in college, I guess it was his sophomore year, they formed the Mexican American Youth Organization. And their main goal was to change the educational system in San Antonio and in the valley. And from there, Mayo just exploded because the problems were so widespread and so awful. You know, like in Edgewood, the district we grew up, the superintendent had offered a janitorial service track. You know, because he was saying that's the only thing that these kids are capable of, being janitors and being, labor. And they were being spanked for speaking Spanish and a host of problems. And so they concentrated on problems in the schools.
He also founded the Southwest Voters Registration Education Project in 1974. Willie would sit at a card table for hours, calling people with his borrowed rotary phone, asking if they had registered to vote yet. In doing this, he was able to convince people that their vote mattered and that it is very important that they were registered to vote. He found out that the Latino community was being split up into different districts so that no district had a majority of Latinos. This kept Mexican politicians from winning elections. The Latinos finally started winning the elections when this gerrymandering finally stopped.
And I didn't understand what it was. I was just like, oh, I just know I have to get up early and I have to walk a lot. But it wasn't until I got a little bit older that I started appreciating assisting him with the block walks, going door to door. I actually even look forward to doing that because I really wanted people to understand why we needed to register to vote and why we needed to vote.
He had such a commitment that it was infectious. I mean, people felt like, you know, he was honest, he was hardworking, he believed in what he was saying, and people listened and believed, you know, felt comfortable with him and believed what he said.
Because of all his success with the voters in Texas, other states and even foreign countries started asking him to come and help with their elections.
People would call him all the time. We need you in Houston. We had problems in Corpus. We need. They call from New Mexico, Arizona, California, the Midwest, Chicago, Kansas. You know, and he put the team together. And they go, and they'd ask him the simple question: how did you do it? We had the same problem. You know, 60, 70, 80% Mexican American minority. No people, nobody on the city council, nobody on the county commissioners, no state representatives, no state senators, no representative. And so they'd ask him, how'd you do it? And there's nothing like success. He said, well, this is the way we did it. And they just copied. It was like a blueprint for success, for changing the game. And then not only national, he also went international. And he was asked by President Carter to go to Chile and make sure that there was a fair election there.
Willie's work consumed his life. Whenever he had a pain, he would just take medicine for it and continue working instead of going to the doctor. This eventually took its toll. June 15, 1988, was a sorrowful day that is to be remembered by many. On this day, Willie lost a hard battle with kidney cancer.
I think his biggest accomplishment was making Hispanics an important interest group so that people that run for office want to have Hispanics vote for them.
Well, what I've seen, the impact my father had on Latinos is that we have more congressmen, more senators, we have more Latinos in public office today than we've ever had. We've had, if you see the gap has closed, and hopefully one day we will have the Latino president of the United States someday soon.
No person in modern America who has run for public office, wherever Hispanic Americans live, has failed to feel the hand of Willie Velasquez. He made this a greater country.
In 1995, Bill Clinton awarded the Medal of Freedom to Willie Velasquez. It is the highest honor a civilian can receive. Willie was not alive to personally receive the award, but his family was happy to be there on his behalf.
And being there in the White House to receive that medal for him was a culmination, I think, of saying, you know, Willie, people, you know, I knew you were great all along. We all worked, you know, the people that worked with you, but now the whole country and the world is going to know.
Even after his death, Willie's legacy lives on. When Willie started his work, there were only 2.4 million registered Latino voters in the U.S. By 2014, there were over 25 million. Su Voto es Su Vos. Your vote is your voice. Willie devoted his life to making sure that the right to vote was used and people didn't just stay silent and get treated unfairly. On his deathbed, Willie saw into the future with these final words: "Qué bonito mundo nuevo." What a beautiful new world it is.